Welcome to the most unhinged beauty pageant of all time, featuring the world's most beautiful women rendered in truly terrifying 3D by an AI generator. Cut the volume on that. Yeah. Through this pageant, we will not only get to know these inspiring women, but we'll also explore what might happen when artists approach technological limitations as a feature rather than a bug. This parade of horror has an actual point. But first, let's meet Miss Venezuela! A survivor of an unfortunate meat grinder accident, Miss Venezuela radiates confidence with one hand on her hip and the other a distant but fond memory. This is a face only a mother could love, but there are a lot of mothers out there, so I think her chances are good here tonight. Hi, Mom. Up next we have Miss Japan, who has opted for a traditional dress melted from 2036 Muji candles. Unfortunately, Miss Japan has a serious case of chin cancer, which has spread to her neck and shoulder. But hey, it could be worse. You know, somehow. I've heard the phrase chest cavity before, but I always thought it referred to the inside of the body. This Aussie bombshell is turning everything I thought I knew inside out. Miss Australia has a duck face that ate a lemon, which is a very popular look on Instagram. She's wearing Duchamp's urinal as a hat tonight. Clever. Miss USA has mostly one leg and is wearing a chef's hat, presumably inspired by the Statue of Liberty. I bet she can cook some amazing freedom fries. Now, am I just getting used to these faces, or is Miss USA looking almost relatively normal? At least like a Joker goth kind of normal? With a dollop of cream adorning her strategically placed hair, an arm holding on for dear life, and a hand holding half her waist and torso, Miss India is a lot to take in. Her face appears to have migrated south, arguably all the way to Sri Lanka. The Union Jack fits like a glove on Miss Great Britain's body, but just to be sure, it's stitched to her arm as well. Now seriously, rewind 5 seconds to see it. Her face is difficult to describe, but even more difficult to forget. Anyway, for some reason, New York's Flatiron Building just popped into my head. That's weird. Wearing a frankly chic and fitting dress for representing Germany, this dreamy blonde is ready to take over the world. Although the world is understandably weary. You don't see a lot of Cyclops beauty queens, but Miss Germany is no ordinary beauty queen, now is she? I know I'll be sleeping with one eye open tonight. And finally, this blonde beauty is looking vaguely sinister, but then again, that's maybe been true of all our contestants tonight. Miss Sweden may not have a nose per se, but she makes up for it with those doe eyes. And by doe eyes, I mean... Okay, so now that you met some of our lovely contestants, let's talk about what you just watched. Like, what was the point of all this? Well, first of all, let me know in the comments which one of these ladies captivated you the most. But yeah, the point. I made a video recently on this channel about Google Earth and how some of the artifacts of its method of satellite imagery and photogrammetry result in imagery that I think is sort of strangely beautiful and interesting as art. And in that video, I briefly mentioned a 3D generator called Genie by lumalabs.ai, which is the tool I use to generate these disturbing pageant models. Now, I'm sure this thing will get better and better, and probably already today you can use this thing to get some pretty decent 3D models, at least if you're willing to do a bunch of editing. But I guess as an artist, I'm a lot more interested in how tools like this might fail, or how we might sort of push them to fail in interesting ways. Because yes, these 3D models that you just watched endlessly rotate are endlessly ugly, but they're also sort of their own thing. Like they're idiosyncratic. Like they have their own distinguishable visual identity that I find kind of interesting. The Museum of Modern Art put out a great little video a while back that talks about how artists throughout time have always been interested in taking tools that sort of exist out there, like tools or technologies or machines, and sort of how they can subvert them or divert them to create unexpected results. Basically making technologies do things that they weren't quite designed to do. The engineers behind AI are typically most interested in pushing their tools toward photorealism. Their goal is for the thing to be smooth and seamless and for it to replace current methods. But quite often in art, I think the seams of the thing are sort of what's most interesting. the ways in which the thing falls apart or doesn't quite work right. I think it can be interesting to embrace that stuff and highlight it and think about what those failures mean or what they reveal. When I generated the models for this video, I would type in Miss USA, Miss Australia, Miss Germany, and so on. And generally the AI took those prompts to mean that I wanted beauty pageant contestants representing those countries, and it presented these cursed women wearing their best evening gowns. Except Miss Brazil. When I type in Miss Brazil, the tool tends to not want to put her in an evening gown. It generates her in a bikini or a bodysuit or some sort of half measure of a garment that typically highlights her backside. This is obviously happening because we collectively as humans carry around this limiting image in our heads of Brazilian women. A tool like this and an art project like this, if you're willing to call it that, can bring to light biases like that and confront us with them. But for this project, I was less concerned with meaning and more just fascinated by how kind of globby and weird these models looked. And I chose to amplify their faults by, first of all, not trying to repair these meshes in any way, and secondly by applying this really shiny finish and placing the models in this artificially lit studio environment in order to really highlight the flaws rather than try to hide them. I think they look like these sloppily painted, really cheaply manufactured porcelain figurines that you might find in some Chinatown dump of a place. And that is what I like about these images. I mean, if this was a video of successfully AI-generated 3D models, it would be a snooze fest. It's actually the cursed nature of these that make them visual objects worthy of a second glance. And so I guess what I would like to encourage fellow artists to consider is whether there might be a third option between, on the one hand, completely rejecting these sorts of technologies, versus on the other hand, just fully embracing them uncritically, lazily, and unethically. Maybe, just maybe, there's something interesting you can do in the middle. More interesting than what I mustered here, I'm sure. By taking some of these tools and subverting them in some way. By generating images that are not what its developers would like to see, but rather some sort of curation that looks at their failure to be human. Something that ditches that satin sheen and instead focuses in on the seams or the frayed edges or the disturbing patterns right underneath the surface. If you're going to engage with the onslaught of emerging technologies designed to end us, maybe finding beauty and meaning in the depraved and dystopian shadows is your best chance at ending up somewhere transcendent. Although, what do I know? I'm just a guy in a hat. And while wearing this hat, I make videos every week for creative people on all kinds of artsy topics. So please subscribe and hit that like button to encourage YouTube to send this frightening pageant to more innocent souls. This video is like The Ring. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.